Everyone see the shared screen with the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I think it's recording now. So the time is 7:05 on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. I'd like to call this Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, the revised agenda, actually?
Matthew?
Someone like the second? Max, perfect. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor, just say aye.
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 Perfect. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive the minutes of September 9th, 2020? Moved by Matthew. Great. Second by
Rochelle.
Rochelle. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Did anybody have a chance to look them over? They're okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, that carries. We have no delegations this evening. So our matters of consideration, we'll start off with a presentation with Erin Hamilton, Sport and Community Development Specialist. Thank you, Erin.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Am I able to just sort of, if I do share, I have a presentation. So Matt, are you perfect? Thank you very much.
All yours. I will sit back for once. It's good.
Excellent. Here we go. And then I'm just going to get it. So sorry, I'm just want to make sure I've got the my screen. Sorry, I just want to put it into slideshow mode from the beginning. All right, everybody able to see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of put out there, this is 6.1, just for the record. Memorandum from Sport and Community Development Specialist, Inclusion in Sport Manual. Sorry, go ahead, Erin.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland, and thank you to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for allowing myself and Chiara to join you today and share some background and some more information with regards to the Sport for Inclusion manual that's been developed as a resource for local sport organizations in the community. And with the purpose to that is to be able to provide some more guidance around the inclusion of persons with a disability into their programming. So with regards to this resource, the town of Aurora has a sport plan, and within it, one of the recommendations outlined is to convene a meeting with agencies supporting persons with a disability to better understand the needs in being included in sport in Aurora. So a committee was formed back in 2017 under the Sport Aurora umbrella at the time when they were delivering the sport plan. And within the committee, a number of recommendations were put forward as to gaps with regards to persons with a disability in the community and their participation in sport. And resources was one of those gaps that were identified. So as a result, we, in moving forward with the sport plan over the past year within the town and moving forward, we developed this resource to be able to share with educational leaders, organizations in working with persons with a disability. And it was developed with the lead by the community programs team. And Chiara is here to join us tonight and be available to answer any questions that you may have. So the two of us are here. And so she led the development of it based on her background and knowledge in working with persons with a disability. And so we've shared the resource that has been developed with you. And so really it's there to foster an environment where individuals of all abilities are welcomed into organized sport. In many cases, we're in situations where the volunteers or staff within sport, staff is volunteers are the primary deliverers of sport programming. And so it's an opportunity to provide them with something that they can refer to help them in the delivery of their programs, and coaches and has the necessary information that they may need to be able to guide them along the way. The way it's developed, it's provided in a simple and easy to follow sort of compact resources instead of having them go to multiple different locations to find the information they may need, or they may not even know where to go. So this provides them with a resource, but also provides them with links and recommendations for other areas that they can look to for additional information to support them in the delivery of their programming. Within the manual, there are 6 major components. So an introduction, which outlines the purpose to the manual so that they understand what they're going to see within the manual. There's information about various disabilities, the strategies to work with those various disabilities, how to communicate with families. And so you can learn a lot in working with the families directly. And so how do you communicate with those families? Creating an inclusive environment, behavior management support and tools, and then the community directory. So this is where it can guide you to some additional resources as coaches or staff to be able to support persons with a disability in their integration into sport programming. In terms of how we're moving forward, so we've reached out, communicated with Matt, and are seeking feedback from both you as the Accessibility Advisory Committee as well as the Accessibility Advisor on any comments, feedback, questions you may have prior to the release of this manual out to our local sport organizations. So we're here tonight to be able to answer any questions. The manual was distributed in advance. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to review it prior to the meeting tonight. If you did, we're available to answer any questions you have. And then once it's been finalized, once we've received your feedback, we'll take it back if there's any final revisions that need to be made, and then it'll be distributed out to the local sport organizations. From there, we're looking to identify potential opportunities to deliver some virtual information sessions. So in a lot of cases, it can be overwhelming to receive a resource. The way it's written, it is easy to follow and compact, but also a great opportunity for coaches or staff to ask questions. So down the road, we'd look at potentially providing a virtual 1-hour session where they can come and ask questions or be available to come back to us with any questions that they may have to ensure the implementation of the resource is done so in an effective way and people are comfortable with moving forward with implementing programming, various ideas and initiatives that are outlined within the manual. So that's just a brief presentation. We're really here tonight to hear directly from you or answer any questions you may have or share additional information about the information contained within or the purpose behind the manual. So thank you again for having us join tonight, and Giada and I are both here and available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Erin. I really appreciate the presentation. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at the information you provided. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the motion on the floor for discussion and ask questions? Matthew, seconder? Max, great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Erin or, sorry, who's the name of the other lady, Erin?
Giada.
Giada, all right, thank you, Giada. Max, do you have a question? No?
So I do have comments and questions, but I'll leave mine for the end. I'll let the rest of the committee go in first.
I don't know if I can see everybody on my screen, so you might need to speak up.
I have no questions, but I do have one comment that's actually quite nice and very detailed, which is good.
Thanks,
So
great.
nice.
Thanks, Matt, for the comment. We appreciate that.
It's also nice that you that you provided an index with the exact what disorders and what supports you maybe needed or so.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I was working at it and I thought, wow, this is really well done. I think it will help. I've been part of organizations that are included in this, and that would help volunteers and staff really understand what people they might be dealing with. I know my parents are both teachers, so this would be great for physical education.
So I
Thank you,
usually
Max.
help with translation here. So just for a couple of individuals. So Max was mentioning that obviously he's very proud that the town of Aurora is putting forth an inclusion manual like this to assist coaches, volunteers, anything along those lines. And then you were mentioning at the end there, Max, I think that your parents are both teachers and that this would be a good resource to actually have in the school board system where physical education teachers and whatnot have a resource available to them as well to assist with students. Did I catch everything there, Max? There was a lot there, so I think I got it all pretty quick there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Max. That's wonderful feedback.
That's great. And I appreciate like even the comment about working with schools. So we are actually in some of the other initiatives we're working on. We have been partnering with the schools. And so we will be looking to potentially run some programs in the future that will be in collaboration with the schools. And so it's great to hear that this could be a beneficial resource. So even as we move forward with some of our future programming related to sport, to know that even this could be a resource as we work with the schools that we can look at with some of the students that we may potentially have come out to the program. So I appreciate that feedback on that end, Max.
I wish my teachers had this.
Aw, that's nice. Thanks, Max.
It's great feedback. I'm glad you shared that. So that's good to know.
Anybody else with any comments? Haley, I know that you are really involved with students and inclusion. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, and there was quite a broad spectrum of subjects there of inclusion. Did you have a chance to take a look, or any questions or comments?
I kind of just came in partway through the presentation too. So if I have any, I will email them if that's okay, just because, yeah, I came in only partway through the conversation, so I don't know if anything has been answered or anything. So I'll take a look, and
No
if I have
problem.
any comments,
No
I'll let them
problem.
know.
Thanks, Haley.
So
Matt,
I'll
I think you had something. Yeah.
Yep. So I'll jump in now that the committee's had an opportunity to kind of speak to it. So thanks for the presentation, ladies. Well done. And the manual is very well written as well. I was happy to see the content that was in there. I do have a little bit of feedback. In terms of consistent language, I just noticed that there was just some terms used. So like a couple of times at the beginning of the introductory, we would talk about special needs. And then later on, you would kind of go back into the more normalized categorization now with persons of disabilities. And then when you're talking to reference. So that's just more like a nitpicking thing, just for consistency's sake, maybe just kind of keep that consistent throughout the manual. The second piece is more from an information communication standard point of view. What kind of font did you guys use? Because it looked like some of the italics used and whatnot made it difficult to read in some kind of like it's okay for me to read, but I don't know how people with visual impairments might take it. For like headings, for example, I wouldn't use italics in there, just keep it as bold. But I'll nitpick that with you guys, I think, off of the committee meeting, just so we can go through that in more detail. And I'll go through the whole manual with you guys. I'm going to be rolling out a presentation actually to the managers and staff in the next month about the new information communication standard. Communications is going to be sending that out corporately as well with what our new policy is going to be in terms of writing. Kiata, you've heard me talk about this over a long period of time, so we're finally rolling that out.
Awesome.
So I just want to make sure that the branding follows with Town of Aurora's styling, and that way we post whatever we have in an accessible format as well moving forward for anyone that's using it online. So I can work with you guys on that afterwards. The images towards the end of it, I like the artwork and whatnot. Maybe if we find a better way to space it, it's very close to the actual content. And again, for individuals with visual impairments or dyslexia, it might be a little bit difficult for them to actually read the lines and have the images kind of that close and clumped in together. So maybe just kind of from a visual perspective, separating those a little bit more, or maybe shrinking down the images so they're not basically line to line with all of the content that you guys have provided, which was great. And then the last comment that I actually had for this was, I like that we picked out specific disabilities, which was great for those I'm assuming are a little bit more common in sport coming in. Similar to, and I don't know if you guys have had the chance, we have a Guide to an Accessible Aurora where we might be able to connect that somehow to this inclusion manual in a capacity. Maybe it sits in the appendices that you guys kind of develop, but it talks about disabilities in a general frame, right? So rather than going specifically into talking about a person with autism, it'll talk about intellectual or developmental disabilities. It'll talk about hearing impairments, physical disabilities in a more general sense. So that way we're not just hitting a couple of the common disabilities we'll see in sport, but we have an opportunity to address disabilities more in an umbrella term as well, on top of the great work you guys have identified on the individual ones you commonly see. And that was pretty much it for me in terms of feedback. Like I said, there was some other pieces in terms of just kind of going through the content, but I'm happy to go through that stuff with you guys offline so I don't take too much of the time up in the committee meeting.
No, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Matt.
All great comments. And so we'll connect offline and further the discussion. I've made all the notes here of the feedback from everybody tonight. So we'll take that back before we finalize and connect with you after the meeting. So thank you so much.
Rachel, if I could just say something quickly.
Sure.
And this is just because I just heard Matt say it and it just reminded me. I know in the community right now for autism that people are moving away from actually saying people with autism and back to saying autistic. So just something to consider. There's still kind of, I would say probably 50-50 going either way. But it is a movement that is happening that people with, and I still say people first as well. I'm in the habit of doing that, but it is going. I've been told by quite a few clients they don't want those words used anymore.
Ellie, I love that.
Sorry, I was just going to say, anyone on the committee know if there is a resource or a guideline in terms of what we as a province officially are using, or as what we're doing in Canada in terms of language? And I guess, Aaron, I don't know where you guys went to for this, but I'm curious about that just on a personal level as well. What's the guideline right now on that piece?
So
I think there is something with our review around equity, diversity, and inclusion, and they probably have those terminology if you want, I could possibly continue my contacts there.
That would be good, Max. Yeah, if you can send some of those resources that you have available to you, it doesn't hurt for us to kind of take a look at it and just have more available to us. Thank you.
I was going to add to Haley's point. I think maybe it would be worth, and you folks can let me know if you agree, in that terminology section, if it would be worth adding kind of like a caveat that says, you know, ultimately we recommend person first language. However, if an individual articulates how they would like to be referenced or spoken to, then ultimately you must respect how they want to be referenced. And that's kind of my philosophy around how Matt pointed out. You know, persons with disabilities are referenced differently throughout the manual. Because of that, I tried to encompass like how people would like to be perceived in that different language. However, I do feel that consistency is key, and we should just maybe mention that coaches should make a note that when and if somebody would like to be referred differently than that, then that should be the ultimate top, most respected kind of form of language that you should use with that individual. How does everybody feel about maybe adding that in? I think there's a section in that person first, just like etiquette section, I believe, Erin, I think.
Yeah. So we could add it in there.
We could do that. Yeah. Just as like an added line at the bottom of that section. Do you think Haley would kind of like maybe combat what you just mentioned?
Yeah, I definitely think that would help.
Okay.
Especially because language is changing and it is individual still. Like some of my clients, they want the person first. And then I've actually, in my intakes, have said that and lost clients because they were like, that's not how we talk about it. He's autistic and this is how it is. And it is very personal and people do take it that way. So it's important to establish that the individual gets to make that choice. And we respect however they want to be referred to as.
Absolutely.
It's a good point, and I'd like to highlight that in the manual as well, Erin and Chiara, you guys have talked about as well with participation intake forms, right? And so that's an opportunity to be highlighted as well, where you're able to personalize saying, this is the way I would like to be referred to in that case. My recommendation was what you were going to say, actually, is to keep the current language as is, because it's still the most commonly used language, and just identify in there that it's obviously most important to respect what the person would like to be referred to as. And so just have that conversation on a personal level. And if that starts the participation intake form, so be it. But obviously as a coach, volunteer, or whoever is going to be using this, you're still going to have those one-on-one interactions to get to know that individual. And it comes back down to just a respect piece of just learning what they would like to identify as and just following suit with that.
Absolutely.
Great. Excellent. All great feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? No? I was just going to make a comment and just say, I think those are all great ideas. I never really thought about that and the addressing and how it can be very specific. I don't know if it's appropriate, the pronouns as well, the he, she, her as well. I mean, it's becoming a little bit more prevalent in everyday interaction and how people want to be addressed. And that would fall under the inclusion as well, just as a suggestion.
That was a good point you brought up, Rich. I actually have a question regarding that. Is this, so it was mostly revolving around people with disabilities. Is this have other sections that evolve into like starting talks about gender identity, culture, sex, anything because it's called inclusion, or is this specifically focused on just disabilities?
Yeah, so this resource itself is specifically focused on disabilities. As we move forward through various components of the sport plan, one area in particular that you mentioned, Matt, is cultural diversity. And so we're doing some work in that area. And so there would be separate resources that would be developed for that. So this one is specifically for persons with a disability, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And Councillor Gilliland, it has been brought up in some of our discussions with the school board and feedback shared. We don't have specific priorities right now within the sport plan with regards to LGBTQI 2T or anything like that. But it's not to say that that's not something as we move forward that we need to consider. And so it is on my radar as I continue to move forward. As a school board even identified that, is that something that they're working with their students within the school board, and the just overall in sport in general. Being a barrier to participation, and the challenges associated with participating in sport. And so there's more information coming out and resources to support that. So it's been brought up a couple times and is something that I look at. It's not, as I said, identified within the sport plan, but we have to evolve as our community evolves and the needs of the community evolve as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments at all? No? All right, I'll call the vote. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 2.
Muted.
Oh. Anybody opposed? All right, that carries. All right, so item number 6.2, it's a memorandum from the Accessibility Advisor. The Accessibility Committee is requesting some input from our committee on a site plan application SP 2019-01. This is the 3rd submission. May I have a mover and a seconder?
Matthew.
Matthew, seconder?
Rochelle.
Rochelle, thank you very much. Staff, would you like to provide an overview of the last submission here, or 3rd one rather?
Yes, I will. So back to work now. Thank you, ladies, again for the presentation. So for this site plan, this is SP 2019-01. This is on 2 Scanlon Court in Aurora. We have had 2 opportunities to take a look at the site plan. Previously, I mentioned that all of our comments were addressed. We didn't have any issues with this site plan specifically. There was a rearrangement in this case to the parking, and so that would be the only comment I actually have on the specific site plan in this case. So the comment I made was basically that they require 3 barrier-free parking. Again, this is becoming a reoccurring problem that we're noticing where developers aren't catching legislative requirements for parking versus zoning bylaw parking pieces. So this is something I've addressed to the consultants that are currently working with the municipality for future site plans to make sure that these things are caught immediately by the developer and not by us as a committee. But either way, like I said, this is the 3rd submission. There was no further changes to the site plan from what we have previously seen in the other 2. Like I said, I've only mentioned that the 3rd barrier-free parking is now required to be added in. Hopefully, they added in somewhere in the middle. If you guys can see my mouse on this proposed parking lot, that way there's something a little bit closer to the middle. But with that being said, in that case, if they do that, they would have to add in a curb depression. So if they opt to not add in a curb depression into the current exterior path of travel, then the recommended spot would be next to the current barrier-free parking that's currently there. The 2 spots we would add on to the side there. So obviously, once we get the revised site plans, we'll see where that barrier-free parking is being added in. But I had no further comments in regards to this specific site plan. So I will open it up to the committee to see if there's anything else you guys would like to see mentioned. And I will zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see it a little bit easier. Oh, it's not. Okay. Bear with me. It's not actually letting me zoom in, so I hope you guys can see it.
Thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Max?
I might be repeating myself, but I would suggest that a crosswalk be put in between the barrier-free parking and the path of travel.
So it's a good comment, Max. I'm not opposed to crosswalks. Generally, though, crosswalks would be between the actual exterior path of travel that's already been built in, so a sidewalk or a concrete travel point, which I'm not seeing actually on the site plan over here. So I know it's a nice to have to think you'd have a crosswalk from the parking area over here, but then we would be clearly identifying that this is the right of way for a pedestrian, when in this case it's not. So I wouldn't recommend saying a crosswalk here. I can look at the more detailed site plans to see if there's some kind of sidewalk in this general area where my mouse is. But I see that there's a transformer here, so I highly doubt it. So this is my advice to you guys, is I would not recommend a crosswalk over here because there's no path of travel. And again, we're not indicating that the parking has the right of travel here when people are going to be driving through with their vehicles, right? We want them to be cautious.
Matt, do you have any follow-up? Max?
No, I agree with Matt.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. That carries. Thank you very much, Matt. Item 6.3, another memorandum from the Accessibility Advisor requesting input from the Accessibility Committee. Input and comments for site plan SP 2020-01, submission number 2. I'll turn it over to, I need a mover and a seconder first. Somebody want to move it?
Matthew.
Matthew, seconder?
Haley.
Haley, thank you. Matt, I think I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you very much. Yep. So we're now looking, again, so for today, it's all site plans we have seen in the past. They're all second or third submissions. So this is a second submission for SP 2020-01. This is on 19 Aurora Boulevard in Aurora. This is the site plan, as you can see in front of you, where we have the proposed addition to the building. And so in the first submission that we provided, I actually did not receive comments back from the developer on this. So I don't know that our comments were addressed in the previous ones. So in this current submission for number 2, all of our comments from number 1 were redistributed back to the developer in order for us to get a response. I will re-identify them for you guys. So on this specific site plan, on submission 1 and for submission 2, we have identified that we want to make sure that it's clear that automatic door openers are available for all public access entries, not just the main doors. Universal washrooms to be provided on the main level. So you can see over here on, again, with my mouse, that we do have some washrooms being developed. It does not look like a universal washroom is being proposed in this case, based on what's identified in the picture. So I have put that in the comments for them to consider that piece. Now, just for a committee, for everyone to be aware, if the normal building already has a universal washroom, which we can't identify because it's not a part of the site plan application, then they would be technically up to code. But I don't know that piece, so that's why I've included it in the comments for the additional story that's being added in. And then the last 2 comments, I indicated for the staircase that you can see over here, again, where my mouse is hovering, the tactile plates be added in, and that an evacuation chair, as per Max's addition to our requirements for staircases, I have that comment in there as well. In terms of parking and paths of travel, everything checks off according to the legislation. So I had no comments in terms of the barrier-free parking or any concerns with the exterior path of travel coming into the buildings. So that's it for my comments for this specific site plan, and I will open it up to the committee for further comments or questions.
Any comments or questions?
I'm glad I make your guys' lives so easy.
Yeah. All right, well, seeing none then, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, those opposed? None, so that carries. All right, so we're on the 6.4 memorandum from Accessibility Advisor, requesting input from the Accessibility Committee, input from Site Plan SPM 2020-01, because it's very close to the other site plan. If I could have a mover and a seconder, that would be great.
Matthew.
Matthew and
Haley.
Haley, excellent. And I'm going to turn this over to Matt. This is submission number 2.
Yep. Thank you very much, Councillor. So like Rachel was mentioning, this is SPM, so 1 letter difference from the previous site plan. This is actually the submission we looked at, I think, our last meeting. It's on Wellington, right next to the Mr. Loop. And so I'll open up the site plan. So this is the one that we were talking about previously that had the crazy elevation. For those of you who know that Wellington Street East going up towards the 404, it's quite elevated. This developer was very easy to work with. Every single one of our comments was addressed in terms of slope, exterior paths of travel, ramps, curb depressions, and tactile plates. I had no issues with the developer. So they met all those requirements, which was great to see. We did have a site plan drawing, which is not included in this package. It was very basic, so I didn't want to waste space in the PDF, but it basically showed the walls in between all these buildings and that bathrooms would be available on the interior drawings. And so the only additional comment I had from our submission 1 for this case was just to include the universal washrooms in each of the units if they're going to be available to the public or for staff use, essentially. So that was the only additional comments I had on this one. We had a whole assortment of comments on the first submission. And like I said, all of them were addressed. We had no issues on the second submission moving forward, to be honest. So that's it for the comments on this one. I'll pass it over to the committee.
Great. Any questions or comments?
It's nice to see a responsive developer.
Yeah, and to be frank, the last year, the developers have been very good. I don't know why, but 2020 has been nice from the developer side of things in terms of these site plans. I haven't had much pushback, if any, basically on any of the comments we've been providing. To be fair, I think the comments that we generally provide are justified. We really stick to the legislation on the minimum requirements or just above the requirements. So they really shouldn't have much to push back on us for. But I agree, this was a pleasant experience for the last couple of submissions that we've had with the committee, with no issues with what's being requested.
Anybody
just
else?
To show you guys elevations. Sorry, I just cut you off.
Oh,
Rachel.
yeah.
I apologize.
No, that's good. I like
but
seeing all this extra stuff.
Yeah, here are the elevations. So you can see over here, this is why we were commenting on making sure all the elevations were appropriate for just walking and being able to get up the ramps, because each story basically goes up. So it looks like we have 2 stores per level. And like we saw in the drawings, the allocated barrier-free parking and paths into each level. Originally, when we were talking submission 1, it would have been nice to have basically a ramp running all the way across, but it would be an extremely long trek from unit 1 all the way up to 6 if that ramp was installed there. So we decided to just keep it as is with the staircases and providing barrier-free parking between all 3 units. And these are just elevations. I know these numbers don't mean much to you, but it basically just shows that it's steep.
I recognize the steepness there. It's a very, for sure. Anybody else? No? Well, I guess I'd say the same thing that Matthew had said, that it's nice to hear that developers are cooperating so diligently. And thank you, Matt, for all your hard work and as well, and working along with them with the requests that the group has suggested. I appreciate that. If there's no more comments, I'm going to call the vote. And is everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that carries. All right, so we're at 6.5, our usual roundtable discussion about the Accessibility Plan 2018 to 2024. Can I get somebody to put the motion on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Matthew, seconder.
Haley.
Haley, great. Anybody? Yeah, you guys are doing fantastic. Anybody have any questions or any comments they want to submit to the plan? Something they want to talk about that hasn't been covered today, or just kind of over this COVID time that you've kind of noticed, or anything you'd like to share?
So I have items for the committee, but to Rachel's point, I wanted open to the committee members first. So yeah, go ahead if anyone has anything they'd like to talk about.
I know I have started to recommend evacuations for developers. Is this something that we want to do? Put into our facility?
So way to jump ahead of the curve here, Max. I did have that as one of our talking points because I know you brought it up last time. And so we could have the discussion just so everyone has the financials behind it. I was looking at a couple of Canadian distributors, and depending on the type of model that we would be looking at for evacuation chairs, give or take, they're about $1,000 each, tax in or tax out, depending on which model and which distributor you use. So they're pricey, obviously, because they have to be able to function on chairs, have weight capacity of over 400 pounds, et cetera, et cetera. But just to put it on, we do have room, and I can bring the operation budget back for the next meeting so you guys can see the numbers again. We do have room to purchase a couple of these. We wouldn't be looking at many because not a lot of our facilities have staircases for emergencies. We would only be looking at a couple of the facilities, like Town Hall, Aurora Family Leisure Complex, the Aurora Community Center, I believe, has some flights of stairs. And then I have to take a look to see which other facilities would require them that public are kind of coming into. But yes, it is an option, but I'd like to have the committee's input if that's the route we want to take for 2020, or if this is something we would like to consider in 2021.
Max, do you have anything else to add to that?
No.
Okay. Matt, did you want to take it away, or?
Sure. So does anyone have any feedback on that piece? So like I said, it's about $1,000. Do we want to put, like, we could even go with purchasing one to see how well it works for the time being, test it out, and kind of make our decision moving forward. I'd like to get some input on the committee, because otherwise we could distribute and use the funds in different areas, obviously, throughout the year. But do we want to go ahead and try one of these evac chairs for our facilities and see its viability as an option?
I think it's a good idea to give it a try.
Okay.
That's my vote.
Okay, so we got one. Max, I know you're probably in on it because you've brought it up a couple of meetings in a row. Matthew and Haley, what do you guys think?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, Haley?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think trying it is the best option first, to make sure it's a viable option rather than just purchasing them all at once.
Perfect. And Counselor, do you have any opinion on it?
Oh, I think that you covered all the bases, and clearly there's a need. Max had brought it up at some point, and you've done your homework, Matt, and I really appreciate you brought this forward, and everybody else seems to be on board. And I think that trying this out is definitely the best way to go before we, I guess, put all our money in a pot and buy the whole lot up. But at least we're going to try it out and see how well it works for our town. So that's great.
Agreed. Okay, perfect. Anyone else have an item they'd like to bring up before I jump in and take over again? Okay, dead silence. So we have our scheduled visit for next week, which is October 21st from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. The majority of the group has said that they will not be able to attend. That is fine. I will go on the site visit with whoever does make it out. We will do a physical appearance. I think, Matthew, you've accepted. Rachel, you've said that you're tentative for the time being. and a couple have said they can't make it. I don't know, Rochelle, I'm not calling you out, but I
Yeah,
don't know if you've responded.
No, I didn't. You know what, Matt, actually a day ago, I noticed your email landed in my junk email bin, so I apologize. I know, which is weird because I got all of the other emails except that one. When I found it, I was very shocked, but I'll have to note down, what's the date again, did you say?
It's October 21st, so next Wednesday, and we're looking at a 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock time period.
Yeah, that should be no problem for me.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, I mentioned it to the committee last time, for those that are obviously uncomfortable with COVID's circumstances, if you're not comfortable coming in physically, after we do the physical tour, I do plan on running in some kind of capacity a virtual tour for the committee as well. And so for those that aren't able to attend, I will do some kind of film sesh going through these two these two sites. We're looking at the Stronach Rural Recreation Complex and the Aurora Family Leisure Complex first. And so for those that aren't able to make it, we'll have some kind of virtual tour available for comments as well. Perfect. We did receive a request in regards to our annual plan from the Aurora Senior Center. So for those that are aware of its location, it's right in front of Town Hall at 100 John Westway. For anyone that's been in the Senior Center, the seniors are very big fans of their bocce courts in the back area. And they have some difficulty accessing it. So the path of travel interior wise into the bocce courts, there's a big step that leads down. And so for those individuals with physical impairments, they're not really able to get out of the facility directly into the bocce courts without basically leaving through the front, going around in order to get to it. So there is technically a path of travel. They're requesting that we provide the funds through our annual plan to make an easier path of travel. Based on the site, it would be nice. And so what they're asking for is a permanent ramp to be installed just outside of that doorway. It wouldn't be a large one. It's really talking about one step. So this ramp would be like 3 to 5 feet in length. So it wouldn't change too much of the layout over there. And then the second piece that they're requesting, which would come along with providing a ramp, is barrier-free buttons to allow for the doors to be automatic opening. So bringing it up to the committee, it has been requested for capital funds as of 2021. The issue with that is that's already been allocated for through our finance department. So I'd have to speak to them to see if that's an option for 2021. In reality, I'm thinking that we put this on our annual plan for 2022, but I wanted to bring it up to the committee for feedback to see what you guys think of the idea.
Any comments or suggestions, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's important because even if they don't have a physical impairment, they are still older, so, and they are more susceptible to policy issues on a step.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Max was just mentioning over there, he was mentioning that the seniors, even though they may not even have a physical disability, they might have some issues accessing through those doorways. So obviously that would be helpful for them. I didn't use the word old like you did, Max, but the second piece as well is just he was mentioning that because of the balance issues they may be experiencing by trying to use that step and holding the door open, it might be difficult for them to access the courts they're trying to get out to. So thank you for your comments there, Max.
Matt, I'm wondering if there is a way to split up the funding and do, like, say the button first, because I could see that being really helpful, and then in the 2022 budget actually doing the ramp.
Yeah, so usually The automatic door openers we actually run through our operating budget. So yes, we can absolutely do it that way. And that way we can just focus on the ramp as a capital project. What I will do is come back to the committee with some kind of numeric value as to how much this ramp would cost. Because it's so small, I don't even know what something that small would cost. So I'll have to find out. It might not even be a capital project. It might be something that we come out with our operating budget. And then yes, we could do it in 2021. But to answer your question, Haley, we could just, depending on all the costs kind of for this project, the door opener, we could 100% do in less than a year. Okay, so I'm not hearing any other comments or concerns regarding it. I do have an interesting topic that I really do need the feedback from the committee on, so you can't sit quiet on this one. Library Square. So the construction of this project is starting. And so what's happening right now is they're going to be closing 2 streets for the construction. So we're looking at Victoria Street and I think it's Church Street that connects directly to Yonge. And so what's going to be happening is they're going to be redeveloping the current parking lot for library. And so all the barrier-free parking to access into the library is going to be under construction. So there won't be any barrier-free parking in order for someone to come in and use the library as of the current setup. So I will bring up here, just to make it a little bit easier for everybody, I will actually open up a site plan so you guys can just follow it with me. So bear with me 2 seconds here. Share screen. Can you guys see the site plan now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is the construction project. So over here where my mouse is going on the left side of this screen is Yonge Street. Over here we have Church Street running along the landscape bottom along the, on this would be the south side, right? Yes, it would be the south side of the library. And so over here where you see this picture of where like the current landscape project is going to be going into place, they're going to be putting in a temporary parking lot for 15 to 17 individuals. It will be on the second tier. So for those of you that are aware of how library is built, there's the main level of parking and then elevated, there's a second part of parking. The temporary parking is going to be on the elevated side, right? So we're talking on the east side over here. Yeah. And so that's where I'm recommending that they do provide a temporary barrier-free parking while they're doing the construction, because there might be some people still going into the other facility right next door. So that way there's barrier-free parking. But that doesn't solve the issue of people having to travel then all the way back down to Church Street over to the front in order to access the library, because the back doors are no longer going to be available during this phase of the construction. Now, there is parking on Mosley Street, which is north of Church Street. There is on-street parking that's barrier-free. But again, that's about 100 meters away from the front entrance. So again, it's available, not a great viable option. So my recommendation to the committee, and then you guys can provide your feedback on, is we will communicate that Mosley Street has barrier-free parking, but there is a trek. We will provide temporary parking in the parking lot that's going to be available on the second tier. Again, not the best option, but I've actually spoken with the CAO of the library and talked about a program where people are able to get bylaw permission to actually park on Yonge Street for a maximum of 15 minutes right in front of the front entrance. And this allows for a drop-off program for people that have barrier-free needs. So initially, there was a talk about creating parking, barrier-free parking on Yonge Street temporarily, but then we would have to do curb cuts into it to really make it barrier-free, right? So it doesn't really make sense. So I've actually been talking with the staff members over there. We haven't come up with a finalized procedure, but the idea is we create some kind of channel for people that have accessibility needs to be able to park on Yonge Street, and staff bring over or pick up books for them at that designated location. And we find that that's probably the best solution in the circumstances of this construction project while the streets are completely closed off. But maybe I missed something. And so I'm bringing this over to the committee for feedback to see if you guys have some smarter solutions than what I came up with for the time being. This is temporary as well, guys. So we're talking about a couple of months while they do the streets. And then once Church Street is back up and operational, these on-street parking where barrier-free parking spaces are supposed to be allocated will be available closer to the front as well. Right. And so from that point on, we can talk about the process as to whether or not we still offer that Yonge Street piece or if we just move it over to the on-street parking. But we're focusing right now on just this phase 1 of the project.
Thank you, Matt. You covered a lot of bases there, and I like all your ideas. That's great. Anybody have any comments about that or ideas that they could share? Any thoughts?
I just don't think it's a good idea to put a barrier-free parking on that second tier because that slope is very steep and I just don't want wheelchair walkers strollers to run away and potentially hurt their users.
So for the committee, so Max is mentioning that he has a concern with the second tier barrier-free parking as a temporary option just because of how steep the hill is. I agree. It's beyond not ideal for this situation. The only reason I recommend that we potentially go with just the one spot over there is there are going to be those individuals that have barrier-free passes to park in those spots that might not have the same physical impairments where they can technically tackle that hill. So that's just my opinion on there is we could still provide that spot for those that are more physically able and could take advantage of and still do want to take that walk. And they have an actual parking spot to go to that's closer than Mosley Street. But that's why I was mentioning that we would go ahead with the process on Yonge Street for those that can't handle that hill or can't tackle that climb. We completely understand. And that's why we want to offer a service for a drop in on Yonge Street for the staff members to help those individuals out.
Anybody else? You got?
Can I just get something clarified here?
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, so you're talking about like lower tier and upper tier. You're talking about what's currently there in the parking lot, how there's like an elevated section, right?
Yes.
So, and apologize, are you saying that the lower section is, when it's under construction, is not going to be used for parking at all? Or?
Correct. Yeah, so the second tier, the elevated parking, there's going to be a very small section allocated towards like 15 parking spots. Everything else is going to be fully under construction.
Okay.
And there is not going to be any, like, you know how like right beside the library, there's those paths into the back entrances. Those won't be accessible either.
Okay.
It will only be the sidewalk of Church Street leading down to Yonge and then Yonge up to the front entrance.
Okay. All right. That's good. Thanks. Yeah, I was just, okay. I was having trouble understanding what you were meaning by the different levels there and which ones you were referencing there, but that's fine. That's fine. I was just confused for a moment there.
No problem. I'm glad to clarify for you.
Matt, can you clarify how that program on Yonge is going to work and how it'll be accessible, especially like to seniors? How are they going to order the books? How is that whole process going to work?
So we don't have the process yet because this was brought to my plate 2 days ago. So this was my idea yesterday to the conversation that I had with the library staff. So this is very preliminary. So we are talking, they're all on board on figuring something out. And if you guys have some suggestions as to how that looks, I'm very happy to take that feedback right now so I can bring it over to the conversation that we have in terms of developing that process. But I imagine it's going to be an assortment of, for those that don't have internet, we can do probably some kind of phone registration and booking for books. For those that can use it online, we're going to try to figure out a way to do that. But again, very preliminary in the talks of having this just available, which the staff were open to doing. We just have to figure out what the actual process will look like. I don't know that quite yet.
Go ahead, Max.
I would also suggest some signage both on Young Street and on the second tier to let people know that they still have to risk their safety. They can call or whatever you come up with.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Max. I talked to staff about just having a strong campaign as well through Facebook and a couple of our media channels, just to, like, once we have a plan figured out, just to convey that messaging. Obviously, I'll share that with the committee. You guys can use your networks as well to share that information out to the community. But yeah, we'll definitely do an education piece as well, just to make sure that people are aware of what their options are. Thanks, Max.
But, and as I said to you, media campaign, I would suggest some on-site signage.
Yep, I wrote down the signage. Yeah, I got that too, Max.
Yeah, you saw it.
So Matt,
Haley?
just going
Yeah,
back,
go ahead.
just going back quickly. So your idea for the 50, they would go, and the idea is that staff would bring or come get the books if they're dropping off and bring out the books, and they wouldn't be required to get out of their car.
Correct. Yeah, the issue with the on-street parking at Yonge is it's not a safe street because of how narrow the channels are. So I spoke to the traffic analyst. We don't recommend any permanent parking in terms of getting out of the vehicle, especially with people with barrier-free vehicles. You need a little bit of a wider space in order to safely get out and offload passengers. So yes, it would be sit in your car, and in some kind of method, we would have staff basically coming out to provide the resource that they're asking for, or take back whatever they're bringing back.
Okay, that's what I was like, that's not quite a safe spot, nor is, depending on the individual, 15 minutes, if you're asking them to get out of their car and back, enough time.
Yeah. So no, this is purely a sit in your car. We bring you things and we take things back from you.
Well,
Any other feedback, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so I will take the following feedback back to staff, and we will arrange the following then. So we will continue with our current Moseley barrier-free parking, which is on street. Nothing changes. That's just there, and just notifying people that it's available. We'll provide the temporary spot with signage, just making people aware and cautious. But there will be one temporary barrier-free spot in the parking lot being provided. We will go ahead with developing a Yonge Street drop-off pickup program. And I will come back to the committee with the logistics of how that works and how that looks, just for further feedback. We just have to discuss that piece and develop it. And the last piece I put in here was just campaigning information, making sure that we ensure that people are aware of what the programs are and what the routes are. I was actually talking to GIS, maybe even creating like a virtual map showing the best paths of travel from the various locations in order for them to access the front lobby of the library. So I can bring all of that back to you guys once it's available in the next couple of weeks. Is that good with everyone? Cool. Thank you, guys.
No, that sounds great. And was this like just an information piece at the end for roundtable discussion, or was there a revised agenda with this on the that we received that I just don't have that copy of, or is this just kind of random because you just got it a couple of days ago?
I just got it, and because we don't have a technical new business section, I added it in as a part of the accessibility plan item. Yeah. Okay,
I really appreciate that. Is there a way then maybe we could have this on the next agenda as a follow-up? Yeah, so now that we actually have like an official reach out from staff in regards to this, we can add that in, yes, as an information item for us to discuss for sure. Perfect, perfect. And I just suggest to the committee, just keep an eye when you're out and about and you're looking at the construction going on. And if you are going to engage in using the library or the cultural center, well, I guess not the cultural center, that'll be closed during this time, just be aware of the feedback. I think we would really appreciate that. And obviously that education piece is so super important and just making sure that the public understands. So I appreciate that. All right, any other questions or comments or any feedback for the master plan? No? All right, well, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Opposed? Nope. It was unanimous. And that carries. All right, so there's no other information reports that we're receiving. So it's that lovely time of adjournment. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Haley.
Haley, seconder? Max.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that carries. Till next time, guys.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you,
Later.
Council. Bye-bye.